And the news has gone wild. Kirk Cousins headed to the Falcons on a 4-year deal with $180 million with a $50 million signing bonus. With Russ going to Pittsburgh, free agent Sam Darnold has interest in both the Vikings and Broncos. The Raiders have signed Gardner Minshew on a 2-year deal and added Dolphins defensive tackle Christian Wilkins on a monster contract, 4 years with $84 million in guarantees. Running back Gus Edwards is going from John Harbaugh to Jim Harbaugh, agrees to terms with the Chargers. Devin Singletary agreed to a 3-year deal with the Giants. And Saquon Barkley has agreed to a 3-year deal with the Eagles, $26 million fully guaranteed. The Packers have agreed to terms with Josh Jacobs and have informed Aaron Jones he will be released. The Trailblazers back in action tonight. The Celtics are in town. Tip-off at 7:30. I've got game day starting at 5 here in your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. The Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad coming at you right now. Well, I tell you what, Godfather, my body feels a little bit out of whack, but yesterday is one of my favorite days of the year. We moved the clocks forward, and then we're still daylight in the 7 o'clock hour. It is the best. I love it.
I get to drive home in daylight tonight. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's the best. I can't wait. Now we just got to hang in there for the better weather, which is around the corner, longer days, more sunshine, and golf season, which is almost here, which is terrific. Rip City Drive going to go for 2 hours today from 3 up until 5, and then Blazers game day at 5. I'm live here at Moda Center, section 330 at the Pines. The Celtics are in town tonight, 7:30 tip. It's on NBA TV, so Blazers and Celtics featured on NBA TV. That's why we have a 7:30 tip tonight. Game day will launch at 5 and go all the way up until 6:30. Coming up here in 20 minutes, we're going to be joined by the general manager of the Hillsboro Hops, Cale Wambacher, to talk about the big news, the great news. They got the funding from the state. They'll be in the budget, and that means, Godfather, they get to move forward green lit with their new stadium project. And so we'll find out when the shovel's officially going into the ground. But the good thing is all the preparations and designs and everything's in place. So there's no waiting. It's just a matter of dropping the shovel in the ground, then get things going. We'll find out when the completion date is set. But we'll have a great ballpark to go watch games and have a sweet outdoor concert venue, which is going to be epic.
I can't wait to talk to KL and get some specifics about what this new ballpark is going to feature, what it's going to look like, all the things that they're going to be able to put in. But, Chad, this is the first time in this area that this size ballpark has been built since, like, Vaughn Street Ballpark in Portland was built, who knows how many years ago, 100 years ago, whatever it was. But it's great news for the city of Hillsboro and the city of Portland.
All right, the legal tampering period kicked off today in the NFL, and the news has already gone mad, Godfather, with quarterbacks going everywhere, big contracts being announced. And I guess we should start with the quarterbacks because we got news late last night from Russell Wilson himself that he has agreed to a 1-year deal with the Steelers worth $1.2 million, and the Broncos will pay out the other $38 million that he is guaranteed and owed. And so the Steelers, they get to upgrade their quarterback room with $1.2 million. That is about as small as you can get in terms of investment. And in a matter of hours, Russell Wilson went to being one of the most expensive players, overvalued players in the league, to being the best bargain, $1.2 million. But for me, I think what this speaks to me the most in regards to the Steelers is they are throwing up the signal or the white flag that, hey, Kenny Pickett is not our guy. He's not going to be the quarterback of the future, and we're admitting that drafting him was a mistake because I highly doubt that Russ is going to go in there to back up Kenny Pickett. What was your reaction to that news?
Well, first of all, I totally agree. He wouldn't have signed with them if he didn't have assurances he's going to be the starting quarterback. I don't think there's any question about that. But, Chad, the other thing I see is, wow, what a deal. Not unprecedented on a smaller level, but he's going to be competing for playoff spots with the Denver Broncos, who are going to be paying him $38 million not to play for them. What an amazing situation it could turn out to be. Can you imagine if they're locked up in the playoffs in some way? Just the whole idea all season long of paying an opposing team's quarterback that much money is amazing.
Well, I guess we can save the suspense. The Denver Broncos are not going to reach the postseason this upcoming year.
Okay.
I can guarantee that. But here's the beauty of it, and my decision is settled. This year, the Pittsburgh Steelers play in Denver against the Broncos. I will be going to that game. I can't wait to see it. And you know what, the bad blood that exists between Russ and Sean Payton, that's going to be a lot of drama right there. I can't wait to watch it play out. And it's going to be a lot of fun. But, you know, the great thing for the Steelers here is that they needed an upgraded quarterback because they're in a division with Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson and Deshaun Watson, although he hasn't really shown what he's capable of yet in a Cleveland uniform. But right away, you need to get better at that position. So they bring in Russ, who's coming off a much better year in year 2 in Denver. You bring in some stability at that position. And most importantly, and this is the most important thing about the deal, Arthur Smith, who will be the Steelers' offensive coordinator, he's a much better fit to what Russell Wilson wants to do in the way that he plays. The problem with Sean Payton in his rhythm and timing offense is that Russ was not the right quarterback for his offense and his system. So now Russ will go into a situation where they're going to run the football. They have a good defense. They spend and draft very well on defense. He's got some playmakers on the offensive end, but they're going to run the football, take some pressure off of him. And all they're going to ask Russ to do, it's very simple. Protect the football. We're going to have you scramble and have some of those terrific, sensational plays on occasion and just go out there and do what you do. Here's the key stat to remember. In the last 2 years, 2 full seasons for the Steelers, their quarterback play, which has been subpar, 25 touchdown passes in 2 years. Last season with the Broncos, Russ had 26. So you're improving production at that position right away. It's critical.
Yeah, you piqued my interest mentioning the game at Denver. Is Russ
awesome?
Is he going to get booed, do you think?
Oh, yeah, I don't have any question about that. There'll be people that cheer for him. Like me, I don't dislike Russ, and I want good things to happen to him, so I will applaud him. But there are a lot of fans in Denver that he turned off pretty quick. So they're going to boo him, and they're going to let their frustration be known because, you know, regardless of how you look at Russ, the truth is that signing and that trade to acquire Russell Wilson was a total disaster for the team in terms of compensation, in terms of cap impact, in terms of setting the team back. It was a disaster. So there are a lot of fans who are really ticked off about it, and I understand that too. But I like Russ.
Yeah, I know you do, and I've always thought I thought he was a Hall of Famer to be off his Seattle career. And I hope he can reestablish some of that in Pittsburgh. You know, win some games, get to the postseason, and have a good statistical year, too, that he can, you know, cap his career with, whether it's 1 more year, 2 more years, whatever. But, like, my interactions with him have been terrific, cooperative. I just think he's been a great citizen, done a lot for charities. He's been a real plus for the National Football League, and I'd like to see him be able to end his career, you know, on a great note.
All right, elsewhere, Kirk Cousins, we talked about this last week. You know, he was rumored to have interest in Atlanta. His wife is from that area, and it became a reality today. Kirk Cousins has agreed to terms with the Atlanta Falcons, and I believe it's a 4-year deal, Godfather, and he gets $50 million in a signing bonus. And how much in guarantees in that deal?
According to Tom Pelissero, who's a good source on things like that, he's getting a $50 million signing bonus, and he's got $100 million guaranteed. This is pretty good for a guy coming off a serious injury like he is.
Well, let me ask you that. Let me start with that, with the Achilles injury. How much concern would you have about giving a big contract to a guy coming off that injury?
Well, under normal circumstances, I would have a lot. Now, things have changed with that injury, even in terms of the treatment, the surgery, all of that. And if just one player, Aaron Rodgers, is any indication, it's not as serious. It used to be like it was a train wreck. I mean, if you had that, you were probably never going to be the same guy. And with him, I don't know. He's not known. He's not fleet of foot anyway. He's not a runner, a scrambler, or anything like that. He's a pocket guy. It may not affect him much, Chad, but I'd still be a little worried. I would. I just – not every guy recovers the same way from any surgery, so I'd be a little concerned. But you do know, his character being what it is, he'll work as hard as anybody to get back. His rehab's going to go real hard, real rapidly. The guy wants to play. You have to say that. And he's, by the way, he's a charter member of the Sports Business Hall of Fame. That man has made a lot of money playing quarterback for a guy who's not going into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, good for him. He's like that
Yeah.
next tier down from the stars. You know what you're going to get. He's going to run your offense. He's going to be very accurate. What I like about this move, a couple of different things. One, the Falcons are in the worst division in football, along with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So you bring in Kirk Cousins, and he's got a chance to immediately compete for a division crown because it's such a weak division. But the other reason why I like it is that the Falcons, they have young playmakers on offense. They also have a very good offensive line. But most of that core on offense is young. So now you bring in a guy with experience who will get guys in the right position. He'll be able to coach up his players and direct the offense because you have a grown-up on the field who knows what's going on. And I think that's going to bring, some peace to that operation. So I like that aspect of it. He is a good leader. He's well-liked by all of the teammates that he's played with. Yeah. So I think he's going to class up that organization. But right away, you look at the South now, and you've got Tampa Bay with Baker. You've got Kirk Cousins in Atlanta, and that's going to be a good two-team battle between Atlanta and Tampa Bay to see who comes out on top. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun. But, Kirk Cousins, not the best quarterback in the NFL. He's not in that elite tier, but accurate, runs the offense, will have guys in the right position. And you're right, good for him. He has made himself a lot of money, and he's coming off an Achilles tear, and he still gets $100 million in guarantees. I need his agent, Godfather.
Yeah. Chad, I loved your summation of him because you're absolutely right. You get what you're going to get from him. He has been consistent throughout, and you're right. His teammates just seem to love him. They play hard for him. He's a great leader. He gets a lot from his teammates. Other teammates have prospered with him at quarterback. I think your wideouts are going to be satisfied. He is a guy. The best thing you said, you got an adult on the field. You have a veteran guy who's going to be like assistant offensive coordinator out there at all times, making sure people are in the right spot. And, really, Chad, there's a lot to be said for that in the NFL with so many of these young guys playing nowadays.
Yeah, it's terrific. The other guy that we mentioned, Baker Mayfield, agreed to terms with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, so he's going to go back. And it's a 3-year deal, but essentially it's a 2-year, $60 million contract. And if he plays well, he's got a chance to earn even more. But, I think what it speaks to for Baker, at least through my eyes, and again, I'm an Oklahoma guy, so I grew up rooting for him when he was with the Sooners. I just see a lot more maturity in Baker as a man now. He's, gone through some difficult times. He's continued to work hard, and now we see with that process, it's starting to pay off. So good for him.
Yeah, he has salvaged his career because a few years back, people weren't so sure. But he has done a great job, I think, of rehabbing his image. Everybody talks about him now in great terms in terms of studying, being prepared, getting along with teammates, being a leader, all those things that maybe you might have questioned at some point. But this guy, I think he's for real. And again, we're not talking about the best quarterback in the league by a long shot, but we're talking about a guy that you can depend on. He's going to play hurt. He can deliver when he's hurt. Undersized, yeah, but he gets the job done. And I think they're happy with him in Tampa, and they should be. I think it's a great thing for the NFL to see him now overcome whatever problems he had and succeed.
Okay, when we come back on the Rip City Drive, we're going to be joined by the general manager of the Hillsboro Hops, Cale Wambacher. He'll join us and talk about the deal that is done and what we can expect from the new ballpark thanks to the state of Oregon stepping up. That's coming up next on the Rip City Drive. Well, joining us right now on the Rip City Drive, the general manager from your Hillsboro Hops, it's Cale Wambacher. And Cale, first off, congratulations. All the work and effort that you and your entire team put in has paid off as the state of Oregon has decided to put you guys in the budget, and you got the funding necessary to greenlight the ballpark. This is awesome. What a day.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Thanks for having me on. But yeah, what an exciting week last week was to get that news late in the week. It's been a tough go, the last couple of years pulling all this together. So it's nice to have some clarity moving forward.
Cale, it's so nice too to be able to talk to you about the future that includes a brand spanking new ballpark in this area, which we've needed. When does the first golden shovel go into the ground on this thing? When can you get started?
Definitely this summer. We haven't pinned down a date, but I think, hopefully kind of the mid to end of July. So we're already at 65% design, so we've got a huge jump start, and just need to get to about probably 90 to 100% design before we can actually break ground. But next month really is kind of a sprint to get the contract put in place with Mortensen to go from design to actually building the thing. And so that's some work that's being done with the city and us and then our owner, Legends.
We're talking with Cale Wambacher, general manager of the Hillsboro Hops. Can you speak to some of the amenities that the new park will have that you're unable to offer right now?
Yeah, the biggest advantage of the new park is going to be the orientation of it. So anyone that's been out to the ballpark the last 10, 12 years, on the third baseline, we have a sun challenge just because of the way the ballpark's oriented. So we'll have it positioned correctly, so we'll have a fully shaded seating bowl, which is a game changer when it comes to fan comfort. Between that, we'll have a new and improved kids play area. Our kids play area has been a signature element for us in the past and be much, much more improved in the new ballpark. We'll continue to have a grass berm so families can come out and spread their blanket out and get that $8 ticket. Our food and beverage operation will be light years better. Just being able to build the infrastructure for the types of food program that we want to offer to fans and also beverage program we want to offer to fans. It's going to be a huge advantage for us. And then have a new premium club area that's kind of an elevated structure. New media facilities. We'll actually have media facilities in the future, which should be pretty awesome. And some additional group areas too that private group areas have done really well for us. So really designing some thoughtful areas in that we know will be high demand for those as well.
Cal, curious about a couple things. Will there be luxury suites to some degree offered? And what is the seating capacity going to be? Do you have that narrowed down yet?
We actually are not going to do a traditional suite like the indoor-outdoor suite. We are going to do some concourse level suites that are open air. The suites didn't test well for us when it came to our feasibility studies and market studies. The club seats did, so we're putting more investment in like the club lounge. It's about
Sure.
a 9,000 square foot club experience. So not doing the suites. I'm sorry, what was the other part of that?
Seating capacity.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I'm sorry. So seating capacity is going to be around 4,000 in the lower bowl and 500 on the premium level in the club, plus some group seating that's not factored into that. So probably from a seat count standpoint, we're going to be in the 4,800 neighborhood. And then with standing room and grass berm and some other group areas, we'll get to about 6,000 for baseball.
Hey, KL, will it be the same capacity for live entertainment and concerts? And how will it be configured when you have a concert?
Yeah, concerts will be able to scale up a little bit more. So we're looking at around 7,000 for concerts because we can open up the seating open up the field for seating. The stage can be placed anywhere from second base to center field, depending on the size of the act, size of the stage, and size of the anticipated crowd. And again, we'll have our entire seating bowl. We're looking at some clever ways to do the netting so we can hopefully easily raise or lower the netting to improve some sight lines there. We're putting the power that we'll need, so that will be hardwired in. So the facility is definitely being designed for concerts, which I think is a unique opportunity we have. Most of the time, ballparks are designed for baseball, and then you try to fit a concert into it. We're taking a different model where we're designing it for concerts because the baseball part's pretty easy.
Cale, what about the events? Now, you mentioned concerts. What other things do you foresee taking place in that facility now over, let's say, over the whole year? What kind of things could you host there?
I mean, we'll definitely do a lot of baseball specific events. So whether that's opening up for a lot of the high school teams to play a game in there just to, create some cool inspiration for kids to play baseball. We could do Little League or JBO opening day ceremonies there. We could do tournaments, whether they're youth baseball or high school baseball or college baseball. We've talked to Nike briefly about doing kind of the PK80 event for basketball, trying to do something like that for baseball, where we could bring in some of the top tier D1 baseball programs.
Wow.
Having it being close to Adidas and Nike's campus is a big amenity for them. And then also, any sort of national type of event, whether that's whatever happens with the Pac-2 and the Mountain West, is there a postseason tournament that's developed later that we could potentially host that postseason tournament that could have the Beavers, the West Coast Conference postseason tournament. So some of those more events that are happening in Phoenix or Scottsdale or California, be able to recruit those here to the Northwest.
We're talking with Hops General Manager Cale Wambacher here on the Rip City Drive. What will become of the current Tonkin Field?
Current field it'll have some minor improvements. The city will take over full time, so to become just a community venue. Which, I mean, when you look around the country, this is going to be one of the best community venues around when it comes to youth baseball, high school baseball, and so on. So, and then hopefully be able to compete for softball as well.
What about? I need to ask you about this. What kind of surface are you going to have? I assume it'll be some sort of artificial turf. Have you looked into the different products available? Do you have any thoughts of changing from what you have now? What are you going to do in the new ballpark?
Yeah, we've spent a ton of time on that, and we're actually kind of drafting off the Diamondbacks as well, because they spent a ton of time on this a few years ago when they switched to artificial turf. They went with a product called Shaw, and so we've looked into Shaw, we've looked into AstroTurf, Field Turf, pretty much every manufacturer out there. The nice thing is, I mean, our field was put in 12, 13 years ago. There's been a ton of innovation when it comes to baseball artificial turf. We will 99% likely have artificial turf. And as you can imagine, with the amount of events we want to do, especially with spring baseball, with high school, college, and pro, having artificial turf is going to be a massive advantage for us.
Sure.
But the innovation in those products has just been remarkable. So we will for sure have the most innovative, best baseball product on the market.
Now, Cale, I know you're down in Arizona right now. What's been the reaction of the Diamondbacks to the great news?
Oh, they're pumped. I mean, they've I wouldn't say they've been frustrated with us, but they've been as patient as possible to understand what's going to happen in the future. They want to plan where their affiliates are going to be and where they're going to develop players. So, this has been something that they've followed very closely, and they've been willing to help in any way possible, while also setting the precedent for their other affiliates. But to get that resolution, literally the night before I flew down there, it was pretty perfect timing. So it's made for a great visit down south.
How about I love the artist renderings on stadiums. I always have, and I've seen the original one that you had. When can we expect to see more detail, more renderings coming out, and hopefully you're going to start churning those out pretty soon?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's hard to do those renderings until you get to about the design point that we're at 65%, because that's when the contractor is kind of willing to lock in their price. and we feel comfortable that we can afford the ballpark that we're wanting to build. And so now we can spend more time on the interior design, more time on the concession design. So when we do put the renderings out, that's what's actually going to be built. I think a lot of teams jump the gun because they want these flashy renderings, but the public will hold you accountable. If you put a rendering out, and you don't actually build that, then it can create some issues for you down the line. So we've been pretty intentional about making sure we only put out renderings that we can afford to build. So I would say in the next month or two, we'll start trickling more and more out.
Good.
Hey, KL, I'm sure it's a long list, but there's got to be some particular individuals that were key in this entire process to give thank yous to. Can you list some of them and their significance to the process for you?
Yeah, you're right, Chad. There's a lot of them. I've got a running list in my phone to make sure I don't forget later on. But I mean, first and foremost, our lobbyist John Eames was tremendous. We had a communications firm, Weinstein PR, that was really good. Chris Oxley kind of became a little special assistant for me, former Trailblazer guy. Chris has been an invaluable resource for me to help guide and bounce some ideas off of. And then from a political standpoint, Senator Solman out in Hillsborough, she's been a bulldog. I mean, she has been an advocate for this for many years, and really wasn't going to take no for an answer in a way. And one of the representatives that really stepped up, Ben Bowman out of Tigard. His dad has season tickets, and Ben has seen what we've done in the community. He's been to games, and he's become a huge advocate. And from day one of the legislative session, I feel like those two, Senator Solman and Ben Bowman, really, really stepped up. And then on the leadership side, Dan Rayfield, Senator Wagner, Senator Steiner, and Representative Sanchez, all four of them have been very open with us in every meeting we've had. I think they were hopeful that the state would be able to fund this because I think they wanted good stories in our state. I mean, that was one thing Representative Rayfield mentioned in the meeting was, we need some positive things to talk about in this state. We have a lot of challenges and we're trying to deal with them, but positive stories can lead to more positive stories. And we're really hopeful that this will be one of those kind of shining stars of Oregon and shining stars of the Portland metro area of, let's do some great things for our community and set us up for the future.
Do you think is it a 2-year project, KL? How long will it take to complete?
Yeah, we'll be done before April of 26. So we'll play 2 more seasons in the current venue. We were really trying to push hard to get this done by the 2025 season, but with some of the funding delays we had, there's just no way to build it in time. So I think we're probably looking at end of the calendar year 2025, early 2026 from a finish standpoint.
Well, KL, we appreciate the time and congratulations. This has been a lot of work that you and your team have poured into, and we were just overjoyed to see the news come through that you guys got the funding and now you're going to be able to move forward with the project. We can't wait to see it. It's going to be a beautiful venue for many years to come in the Northwest.
Yeah, thank you guys. Appreciate all the support. This is extremely exciting for our region, and we are so grateful to be able to move forward full speed now.
You got it. We'll talk to you soon, KL. Thanks, man. Enjoy Zona.
All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
There you go, KL Wambacher. Well, you could hear it in his voice, Godfather. That was a lot of work. And you know as well as I do that you think politics is difficult and dirty until you get down and dirty with it, and then you realize how difficult and dirty it truly is.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, this is an example, Chad, where good things have happened to good people. And from ownership on down, this franchise has been a model franchise. There's no question about it. Talk to anybody involved with minor league baseball, and they'll talk about the Hops. It is notoriously good on operational levels, and I'm happy for them.
And I can't wait until you and I are out there to celebrate the new park here in a couple of years, enjoying a nice summer concert out there. How nice is that going to be? Like July or August out there at the new park, enjoying a nice rock and roll band?
Very
I'll take
nice.
some of that.
So happy to hear him talk about, too, the configuration will be with the sun setting at your back, so you don't have to stare into that sun setting over the right field fence any longer. That's the way to do it.
Well, and the other good thing is we don't have to worry about you complaining about lack of media facilities now because they're going to have an improved press box and everything at the new place.
Yes.
There you go.
The press box. I think when they built it, they thought, well, maybe the media is not going to be very interested in us. But it turns out the media has been very interested, and they need a bigger press facility.
All right. Big props to Cale Wambacher and the Hops. So what are we looking at then? Maybe 2 years, a 2 to 3 year process before it's all done? That's what it sounds like?
26th season. So a couple years.
All right. 2 years. We can wait. That's great, though. It's a good sign, and big props to the Hops for getting that done. And that's going to be a venue that, we'll all get a chance to enjoy at some point in the future, whether it be baseball or some other event or definitely a concert. And as you all know, there's not really any great outdoor concert venues in the area. Edgefield is good, but not elite. And now we're finally going to have one of those spots in Hillsboro with the Hops new stadium. So there you go. Cale Wambacher of the Hops joining us here on the Rip City Drive. The big news today, of course, NFL free agency. Russell Wilson's going to the Steelers. Kirk Cousins is headed to the Falcons. Baker Mayfield is going back to the Bucs. Saquon Barkley is headed to the Eagles. We'll get into that coming up here in just a few minutes. And we've got news in the NBA, too. Rudy Gobert got hit with a fat fine, and it wasn't criticizing the officials, but something a little bit worse than that. And also rule changes that are slowing some of the scoring in the NBA. We'll get to that at 4, and then we'll get back to the quarterbacks coming up at 4:15. Dwight and I are also going to talk about DeAndre Ayton and his recent play. 13 games where he has been dynamite, and 30 points, 19 rebounds in the victory against Toronto on Saturday in overtime. But he's been a dominant force. But, the great thing about that game, Godfather, on Saturday, the return of both Scoot and DeAndre Ayton, and they both picked up right where they left off. Scoot played well in the limited minutes he got. He was on a restriction, and DeAndre Ayton was back out there dominating, man. That was it was everything I wanted to see. Those two guys on the floor playing well. I loved it.
I've said it all year. Just put Scoot Henderson on the floor, and it's a lot more fun to watch. His charisma bleeds over to other players, and it's just fun to watch him operate. It really is.
I'm noticing him hustling around on defense, too, making an effort to be a better defender.
Well, he goes down the court, Chad. He picks up full court. You got to love that.
That was good. Yeah, that's nice to see. And Delano Banton, another big night. He had 55 points on back-to-back nights, 30 in the loss on Friday, 25 in the victory on Saturday. That's a guy right there who's making the most of the opportunity he's been given here in Portland with so many guys out.
Well, and the good thing on the second night, much more efficient with his shooting. Had a great night shooting the ball. And when he's efficient like that, he's very valuable to them.
Oh, by the way, did you watch any more of the episodes from Dynasty?
Yeah. I thought you told me, though, that the last 2 were going to be available, and I couldn't get those yet. But
well, that's what I was thinking, but no, it's not going to be until next week. But I did watch 7 and 8, so I'm looking forward to the final 2. I can't wait to see the fallout. I'm assuming in episode 9 we'll get to the details behind Jimmy Garoppolo being shipped out of town to the 49ers.
Yeah.
I don't think Brady appreciated watching Garoppolo come in and win games and play well and Belichick embracing him. I think it probably pissed him off.
Yeah, it's a well-done documentary because you can see they've shaped the story just perfect. They're ramping right up to the split. The split with Garoppolo and then the split with Brady heading out of town.
They do make Belichick doesn't come off looking warm and fuzzy in this doc. I'll say that.
No, they've done him no favors.
That's not how he rolls. That's not how he operates. All right, we'll come back and we'll talk about Saquon Barkley. He's on his way to the Philadelphia Eagles. The Giants making a decision to save money at that position. Is that the right play? Is that the right way to do it? We'll talk about it next here on the Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad.
here on 620 Rip City Radio. Listen on your free iHeartRadio app for all your music, radio, and podcasts.
All right, Godfather, one thing to keep in mind was some of the quarterback maneuvers today. A few of the moves are going to impact the draft in a significant way, and here's how. So the Atlanta Falcons right now have the number 8 pick in the upcoming NFL draft. They just went out and signed Kirk Cousins, and he's on a multi-year deal. So that takes them out of a rookie quarterback conversation, so you can take them out of the mix. Also, at number 11, you've got the Minnesota Vikings, who had Kirk Cousins, but he's now on his way to Atlanta. So Minnesota now is in the quarterback conversation. They currently sit at 11, and they've got plenty of draft ammo to work with if they want to move up. And then the Denver Broncos, who could be looking at a quarterback in round 1, potentially, maybe not, but they now have a team directly in front of them in Minnesota who's definitely going to be in the quarterback market. So my guess would be Atlanta is going to officially hold. You can move up with Atlanta and be in a position to be able to do that, because I would assume Caleb Williams, Drake May, and Jaden Daniels in some combo will come off the board 1, 2, 3 to the Bears, the Commanders, and the Patriots. And then that would leave J.J. McCarthy as the likely the next guy picked. So keep an eye on Atlanta at number 8, taking calls for a team that wants to move up and get their quarterback. Minnesota right now being at the top of the list.
Chad, would you expect the Broncos to be sold enough on one of these other quarterbacks, say, for instance, Bo Nix, to try to move up just a little bit?
No, because 10, and you're not going to take him at 12. I think, from what I'm being told, the quarterback, if the Broncos select a quarterback in the draft, it's probably going to be Bo Nix, but that's a guy that you can trade back and be able to get later on in the first round or possibly in the second round, but you're not going to spend a top 10 pick, and you're not going to forfeit assets to move up and draft a guy like that. That would be insane. So, but J.J. McCarthy, based on everyone I'm hearing right now, he has impressed so many people through the interview and combine process that he might be a guy that you look at and say, okay, I want to bring him in, because he comes out of the pro-style offense. He's probably the most NFL ready, and you can work with him and continue to develop him. And I like the coach there at Minnesota. That might be a good fit there. But no, I'm not moving up to take Bo Nix, and I'm definitely not moving up to take Michael Penix because of the medicals. And my guess is Penix probably won't be a first-round pick anyways. So there you go. Keep an eye on Atlanta at number 8.
Yeah,
and I'm not sure that the Broncos are a mess right now anyways. They, what they're going to try and do is sign Sam Darnold, and he can be a bridge quarterback for a year or two as they get through the cap hell from the Russell Wilson deal. And then they can, look at addressing a quarterback in the draft in the future when they have more ammunition to work with. But they have limited ammunition. They traded Jerry Jeudy and got a couple of fifth-round picks, but they have so many needs on the roster that I just don't think it's wise to be trading assets to move up and get a questionable quarterback. That would be dumb, to be honest with you. Can't do it. Can't do it. I'm not. You wouldn't take Bo Nix at 8, would you? Would you move up at 8 to take Bo? Give up assets to move up to 8 to take Bo Nix?
Look, I don't know that I'd take him at 12, but you're telling me they would take him if he were there. And
no. I'm saying that they would take him in a situation where they move back in the draft. So they take their number 12 pick and they trade out a 12 and they collect other assets, like a couple of picks, so they have more ammunition to work with, and they select him late first or sometime in the second. But no, you're not giving up assets to move up to draft Bo Nix. No disrespect to Bo Nix, but that'd be insane. Can't do it, especially when you have a team that's loaded with needs. No way. Especially for a questionable quarterback. Would you do that? Would you give up assets to move up and draft? You're not even comfortable taking Bo at 12 without moving up.
Well, I'm just saying you got to have a quarterback, and you want to try and get a good young one. Maybe they're good enough this year that they won't have even a number 12 pick next year. I don't know. When are you going to get your quarterback?
Well, I mean, you could say the same. There are a lot of teams like that. I just don't. I mean, you can wait to draft your quarterback. You don't have to make that move right now when you have so many other needs that need to be fit. So I guess where I'm at right now with the Broncos is if you can trade back and get your quarterback at a more economical spot, then do it. If not, then draft at other positions of need and just, proceed forward with your, with your bridge quarterback until you have an opportunity to draft one in a year where you have all of your draft assets on hand, like a second-round pick. You have all your picks. They don't have that right now. But with J.J. McCarthy, I'm fascinated by his rapid climb. There are teams now and general managers and other scouts who are loving this guy. And, I don't know.
Well,
I just know I know he's the most pro-ready, but I just don't know.
Yeah, I hear a lot about him. And look, I get that. I understand. The one thing they say about him that I don't get and I don't understand, he's a winner. He's won every place he's been. Well, every place he's been has been loaded. I look how many Michigan guys were drafted. I mean, yeah, he won with them. I didn't see him actually be a difference maker in a lot of those wins. I don't know. I don't look at it that way. And I don't see quarterback wins and losses as being as big a factor as some people do. And it's gotten me into trouble with assessing Tom Brady over time. But I just think if you have your reasons, that's fine. I've just said don't draft him because he's a winner, quote unquote. Maybe not.
Yeah, I'm not drafting Bo Nix or J.J. McCarthy in the first round. I'm not doing it. I'm not taking Penix. I'm not taking Nix. I'm not taking J.J. McCarthy. It's too risky. Because I'm not convinced that either one of those guys is going to turn out to be a dynamic NFL quarterback. In other news, Saquon Barkley is headed to the Eagles. He got a new deal, $26 million of fully guaranteed money. I love this move for the Eagles because of the way they play and the type of playmaking he'll bring to the offense, but you don't like it from a Giants standpoint. Why is that?
Chad, I'm sure for a football and an economic standpoint, it's a good move. They're getting another running back who I don't believe is as good as Barkley, but they're getting him for half price. So you can see why they would do that. I just think there are certain players on your team that are iconic in your market. The way Damian Lillard was in Portland. And I just think when you deal them, you have to be very careful and know what you're letting yourself in for. And New York is such a big, huge media market where everything you do is scrutinized. I think they're going to take a lot of hits in the media for doing this because Barkley was a very, very important player to their fans who don't have an awful lot else to cling to, They're not in love with their quarterback for obvious reasons. Not even sure they're in love with their coach now. Barkley is an iconic player in New York, and I think that's a tough one for the business side of this operation to deal with. So that's my objection to it. I think sometimes in pro sports, that has to be a consideration. You don't like to have to consider it, but you get yourself in a position with a team like New York, and maybe you have to consider it.
Well, the way I look at this is very simple. It's just economics. The Giants suck, and they're going to suck this year with or without Saquon Barkley. And they're a team that's headed more towards a rebuild than they are a playoff berth. And so I just feel like a running back of that quality and that type of price is a luxury item. And for a team like Philly that's trying to reload and make another run to the Super Bowl, it makes sense. But for a team like the Giants that has massive need and has a lot of different holes on the roster, I just don't see how you can justify spending that type of cash. I love Saquon Barkley, but I can understand why the Giants look at it and say, we have a lot of needs. We're not going anywhere next year. Let's let him go, and then we'll bring in, Nate Singletary, who is a decent back, and we'll pay half the price. So I think that's what it comes down to. If they were, it's kind of like the 49ers. They're competing for a championship. You can afford to pay Christian McCaffrey and have that luxury item if you're in a chance or have a position where you can possibly win a title. But with the Giants, they're not going anywhere. So I just don't have a big problem with it.
Yeah, the unfortunate aspect is when a guy's a free agent, you don't have any control over where he goes. And the painful thing for the Giants and the Giants fans is, man, he's going to be right next door. And I think he's going to have a big year with that team. I think it's just made for him. And they're going to have to sit there and watch their next door neighbor run wild over him.
Yeah, well, they were going to do that regardless. What I like is, DeAndre Swift is a nice running back, but if you can replace him with Saquon Barkley, which they did, then I like that move. And, you have balance, with Barkley and Jalen Hurts in the backfield, and you can hopefully put yourself in a position to make a run. So I'm excited to see him. And for him, what a fresh breath of air, man. You get out of New York, and you go to a team that's significantly better, and you've got a quality quarterback. Like, what? I mean, he's got to feel like he woke up this morning and hit the jackpot.
Yeah, he's going to be.
Wait, wait,
He's going to be so excited to get there, have a really solid offensive line, especially if they can replace, Kelsey at center, and then, a really good all-around team, good quarterback. He's got what he needs, and I think he's going to have a huge year just based on what he has around him. Running backs need help. They've got to have those guys up front, and I think he's going to have that in Philadelphia.
All right, when we come back, Rudy Gobert was fined a small fortune for saying what we already all believe anyways, and then also the NBA trying to crack down on too much scoring. So we'll talk about that next. We'll get back to the quarterbacks and the first day of legal tampering in the NFL coming up at 4:20. That's Dwight. I'm Chad. You got the Rip City Drive. All right, now 4 o'clock, opening of the NFL free agency period. Kirk Cousins headed to the Falcons on a 4-year deal with $180 million, a $50 million signing bonus. Russ is going to Pittsburgh. Free agent Sam Darnold has interest from both the Vikings and Broncos. The Raiders have signed Gardner Minshew on a 2-year deal and have added Dolphins defensive tackle Christian Wilkins 4 years with $84 million in guarantees. Running back Gus Edwards going from John Harbaugh to Jim Harbaugh agrees to terms with the Chargers. Devin Singletary agreed to a 3-year deal with the Giants. Saquon Barkley has agreed to a 3-year deal with the Eagles, $26 million in guaranteed money. The Packers have agreed to terms with Josh Jacobs and have informed Aaron Jones he will be released. The Trailblazers back in action tonight. Celtics are in town. Tip-off at 7:30. I've got game day starting at 5. Live from Moda Center here on 620 Rip City Radio. More of the Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad coming at you right now. All right, Rip City Drive, Dwight and Chad with you. All right, Godfather, Rudy Gobert has once again gotten himself in a little bit of trouble, this time for an inappropriate and unprofessional gesture towards an official. What exactly did he do that resulted in a $100,000 fine? I can't imagine a gesture being worth $100,000.
Yeah, well, it wasn't an obscene gesture. That's an amazing thing, too, Chad. It was that universal gesture where you rub your thumb across 2 fingers, and it's like money, 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 money. That's the gesture he made, with the implication, of course, that the game was either fixed or somebody's taking money to fix it, or the league wants a certain team to win for money reasons. Whatever. He's implied this in post-game press conferences before, and he did it after this game, too. So if there's one, the league will fine you a modest amount if you just say, hey, they were terrible, officials were bad, we couldn't win with that kind of officiating, whatever. They'll live with that. They'll fine you $20,000 or whatever, 25. But when you start talking about games being fixed, they can't allow that to happen, and partly because of all the gambling concerns that are buying advertising on ESPN right now and all the other networks carrying games, but it just won't fly. And Rudy Gobert, honestly, he's got to learn his lesson with this. He can think that all he wants, but you can't say it if you're working for the NBA.
Yeah, the report I read said the fine levied by Vice President and Chief Disciplinarian Joe Dumars and announced through a news release also covered Gobert's flashing the money sign with both hands towards refs after he was whistled for his 6th foul late in the 4th quarter. Gobert explained his gesture, which drew a technical and led to a game-tying free throw from the Cavaliers as, quote, the truth, it's what I truly believe.
Wow.
I love it. I love it. It says, he went on to say, quote, mistakes happen. Referees make mistakes too, but sometimes I think it's more than mistakes. I think everyone that is in this league knows. I think it's got to be better. I know the betting and all is becoming bigger and bigger, but it shouldn't feel that way. That is an amazing statement from Rudy Gobert. The funny thing is, Godfather, he gets fined $100,000 for that, but most NBA fans that I know all suspect or are very suspicious of the league and the fact that it might be rigged or possibly fixed. There are a lot of fans that believe that. The NBA's had an image problem in this category for quite some time, and it's amazing to me that it continues on to this day. I'm certain they're aware of it, right, that fans question their integrity at times?
Yeah, not just fans either, Chad. You know how many games in this league I've watched. I half believe it, too. I've seen things that I can't explain. I've seen things happen right in front of officials where things just didn't get called the way they should have been. and it's almost always in the favor of certain teams, certain players, certain teams that look appealing to the NBA for viewership reasons, Q rating reasons. I think even the players believe it, Chad, and I think you believe that too, that there's just things going on that we're not aware of. And I think as the gambling increases, you have to be more and more cognizant of the ramifications of that.
I've just always worked off of the belief that, and again, it could be a folly on my part, but I do believe that the league benefits greatly from its massive brands like the Celtics, the Lakers, the Warriors, the big brands going deeper into the postseason, and especially on the big stage of the NBA Finals. And so I've always wondered, when it comes down to those key moments like we saw with the Kings and the Lakers, where you have one team that is getting the benefit of the doubt over and over and over again with the whistle, how can it not lead you to believe that the league would much prefer certain teams in over other ones, right? And I think a lot of fans see it the same way.
Yeah, and Chad, really, I think we'll sit back and watch the playoffs this year and just keep your eyes on the Lakers and the Celtics. There's no one that the NBA would rather see in the finals than the Celtics and the Lakers. Now, look, this is not a precise science, and it could be that neither one of those teams are good enough to make that work. But we've seen in the past, if they're good enough to make a game close, they're usually good enough to win that game.
Well, it's that point that Evan Turner made, right? Like,
yeah,
if you're a team the league does not want to advance, you have to make sure you go out there and handle your business and win the game by 20.
Yeah.
Because if it's close in a game against the Lakers or the Celtics or the Warriors, a team the league would like to see advance, then you could be in trouble. The advantage for the Denver Nuggets, and we've seen this over the last few weeks, they're so much better than those other teams that when they get into a game, their talent overwhelms them. And so I think it would be difficult for the league to pull it off in a series against Denver because they're just too good. But yeah, we're always going to wonder. And I think right now everyone perceives, not everyone, but a lot of fans perceive the Lakers and LeBron James as being the league darling, right? They want LeBron to be on that stage. Mm-hmm. And so, if you're going up against the Lakers, you're probably going to be punked by a few whistles. And I think players expect that.
The Lakers have always been that team, and it's like you can go ask the Sacramento Kings. I mean, that's probably the most blatant example I've ever seen. When you look at the fouls in the fourth quarter and all the things that went wrong for the Kings in that game, and they still could have won the game, actually, if they'd have done a few little things right, but they didn't. And it's just happened so many times over and over and over again that you just have to wonder. And you're seeing it this year with the Lakers getting to the free throw line so much more than their opponents every single game.
All right, so young kids out there, just let this serve as a reminder. Rudy Gobert be the teacher to you. Yeah. You can think a lot of things, but it doesn't mean you can just say whatever you think. Sometimes it might be best to bite your tongue and keep it on the inside. Now, there's something else going on. What's the latest with the league trying to reduce the amount of scoring that's going on? Because we've heard a lot of concern and complaint about that. But what's going on? What's happening with the league in this area?
Well, Chad, a lot of people on the inside that I've talked to believe that after the All-Star game, and actually after the debacle of the All-Star game, when 200 points were scored by one team, that the league mandate went out right from the top, from Adam Silver to the officials. We're putting too many people on the free throw line. That's when a lot of these points are being scored with the clock stopped. If we can keep people off the foul line, the scores won't get so high, and it won't look like, offense has all the advantages. And since the All-Star break, there's definitely evidence to that to support that theory. And I think what I've heard is that the stats I've seen, points scored is down 4 points per team, which is actually significant, especially in the second half of the season when scoring normally goes up as players get tired and hurt. But it's gone down 4 points per team, and trips to the foul line are down 12%, which is also significant. And I think we're seeing it. You saw it last night. There are games now that are way lower scoring than what we saw before. And I think the league, most of the people in the league are happy to see the scores go down, but they're worried that this was done without them knowing about it. And you don't like to see the league office making changes in the fundamental structure of how these games are called without letting people know who are playing the game. And you worry too, well, are they going to try and do this again, only change it back again? Or what should we expect? And they feel like they're not being appraised of the way the games are being called.
Well, what is the normal process when the league wants to adjust or change the way that they're doing things or calling games? What's the normal process for being able to get that done?
Well, normally you change rules, and those rules are announced in the summer, not only to the teams who have to pass on it first, but to the public. You know, we hear these things every year. They usually don't get called. We're going to crack down on traveling this year, palming the ball, all that stuff. And they do for the first couple weeks of the season, and then it goes back to the way it was. But that's the normal procedure. I'm just not sure that we've heard anything like this, and it would be harder to go public with this because you're basically talking about referees' judgment, not referees' knowledge of the rules or where the game's being called.
Well, what I don't understand is what's the benefit to the league to have less scoring?
Well, I think the perception is you can't guard anybody anymore. The good players are getting to the line way too much, and it's throwing the whole balance of the league off. And I think you're seeing criticism even by former players. Oh, if I were playing today, I'd average 40. You know, people talking about Allen Iverson would score 40 a game if he were playing now. People take that as criticism of the league, not just an observation of the league, but criticism. It used to be the league thought the public wants to see more scoring. And I think the public wanted to see more free movement in basketball. And what we saw earlier was Detroit, the Knicks, and all those teams wrestling around on defense, holding players, pushing them down, whatever, to thwart offensive movement. Nobody wanted that. But I don't think they necessarily wanted to see 150 points scored every night. I don't think that gets to be fun. And obviously the three-point field goal has played into that. Not only the three-point shots, but the prolificness of three-point shooting now.
All right. We'll keep things rolling here on the Rip City Drive. When we come back, we'll get back to the NFL free agency, the legal tampering period, and talk quarterbacks. We got some guys on the move and what that means for their new teams, including Russell Wilson, who's now going to be with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Kirk Cousins on his way to Atlanta. The Raiders have signed Gardner Minshew to a 2-year deal. So we got guys on the move. A lot of big news. We'll get to that next. You got the Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad. All right, Rip City Drive, Dwight and Chad. Blazers game day is coming up at 5, and I'm live here at Moda Center getting ready for the tip-off tonight. Blazers and Celtics from Moda Center at 7:30. Tomorrow is Trailblazer Ticket Tuesday. We'll have 4 pairs of tickets to give away. And you can always get your tickets at trailblazers.com, but every Tuesday we have Trailblazer Ticket Tuesday, your chance to win tickets. Just listen to us for your chance to win. That's coming up tomorrow on the Rip City Drive. We'll get to the quarterbacks here in just a moment, but let's go out to the phones. Dan down in Salem wants to talk a little DeAndre Ayton, and I'm down with that because I like the way he's playing right now. Dan, welcome to the show. What's on your mind? Fire away.
Hey, Chad, this is David.
All right, David, Dan, whatever you want to go by. Fire away.
Hey, I wanted your take on DeAndre Ayton. You know, I gave him a hard time when he was out, and I watched the highlights of him.
No.
playing
Hold on
the
for a
last
second.
game.
Hold on. First off, David, let's be real. You didn't give him a hard time. You criticized him incessantly because he couldn't make it out of his home, his driveway, and get to the arena when there was ice all over the place, even though the team came and tried to get him out and they couldn't. You didn't understand that because you're a Grizzly Adams type guy who can handle bad conditions.
I did, I confess. But I'm just so impressed with his game, and I wanted your take. Do you think he could play power forward for the Blazers?
What? No, he's a center.
I just watched his mobility, and he made me think of LaMarcus Aldridge that last game. And not that I think LaMarcus Aldridge wasn't a great player and maybe a little bit tougher, but, man, that guy's mobile. It was just a joy to watch him.
All right, appreciate the phone call. You have to love a guy that corrects you right out of the gate because you said Dan instead of David, and then he proceeds with that take. Hey, do you think they should move DeAndre Ayton to power forward? No, he's a center.
I don't even know what to say about.
See, this is why, Godfather, you're always excited. You're like, hey, let's go to the phones. This is why I'm always hesitant to go to the phones because you get stuff like that. DeAndre Ayton at center.
Well,
Really?
Yeah, but I think that was screwy enough to be entertaining. Almost, I had to chuckle when I heard it. It's hard enough to find a center without moving him to power forward, and he doesn't really have a power forward game. I would think.
No, he's a center.
And
he
his
was drafted
mobility-
as a center.
His mobility works great against the modern centers who go outside, run the floor a little bit. He can keep up.
All right, put the engagement aside. In terms of just basketball, what is the real weakness to DeAndre Ayton's game? Like, what's the one area where you wish he could do something that he can't?
The big problem, look, I'd like him to be a little more of a shot blocker, but he's not, and I can accept that because he can move. He's mobile. So I'll overlook that. The biggest problem, Chad, has always been his ability to stay engaged, to stay involved, to give you effort every night, to be the guy you can depend on, to show up, play hard. And he's done that for the last, 6 weeks here. He's, and overlooked the injury problem, but he's been that player. And, moving forward, Chad, I think the big question is, can we keep him engaged here? Can he stay this excited? And part of the reason he's so engaged is they don't have a lot of scorers on this team right now. So he's getting an opportunity to shoot the basketball. Well, that'll keep anybody engaged. And the question would be, if they start surrounding him next season, for instance, with a couple more shooters who need the ball, and he's going to be cut down to 8 to 10 shots a night, will he still be as excited about playing? And I think that would be the question moving forward with him. It isn't what he can do and what he can't do. I think he's shown here now he can do a lot to help you win when he's in the game, when he's mentally in the game.
All right, we'll get back to DeAndre Ayton. I've got a headache now. The comment from David, he just killed me. It absolutely killed me. Let's move DeAndre Ayton to power forward. Come on, David.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to cleanse the palate. We have some tickets to give away.
Oh.
Jason Bonham's Led Zeppelin experience is going to be at the Keller Auditorium on May 3rd.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't know
Jason
that.
Bonham's Led Zeppelin experience, May 3rd at the Keller Auditorium. So if you want to see that show, you can do so right now. Call 503-248-0620, and we'll take, in honor of DeAndre Ayton, the power forward, we'll take caller number 2, 503-248-0620. 503-248-0620. Caller 2 right now gets a pair of tickets for the Jason Bonham Led Zeppelin experience at the Keller Auditorium.
Chad, can we spend 10 minutes comparing him to LaMarcus Aldridge? Would you like to do that?
Oh, my
too?
gosh. It's just like, that stuff gives me a headache, Godfather. It's like, and then he didn't even, he tried to skirt the whole criticism of DeAndre. Like, he came on and just laid it on him for not being able to make it to the arena. And it's like, no, they tried to get him. They couldn't. And whatever. Come on, David. Be better, David. I believe in you. You're a good caller. But power forward? Who are you going to put at center? What are you going to do? Just move Wap Reef into the center spot and just play DeAndre Ayton at power forward so we can match up with Minnesota? Okay.
I'm going to check
I'm done
out.
talking about it.
I'm checking out for a minute, Chad. I got to get on the phone and try to get those Led Zeppelin experience tickets. So, not really, but that sounds pretty good to me. John Bonham.
He's good.
Yeah.
I remember his first solo album that came out in like 1991. I got that, Jason Bonham. So good for him. It's Keller Auditorium's a good concert venue as well.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's talk some quarterbacks, Godfather. We'll start with Russell Wilson, who announced it last night on Twitter. He's going to go to the Steelers, and he signs a one-year deal. But to me, this makes perfect sense for the Steelers, who needed an upgraded quarterback just simply on the finances. The Steelers are going to pay him $1.2 million to come in and be quarterback, and the Broncos are going to pay him $38 million. It's perfect math, because how many teams can get a starting level quarterback for $1.2 million? It's a no-brainer because there's no risk involved. If you bring him in and it works, then it's great. If it doesn't work, then it doesn't cost you anything because you're not giving up any draft assets. You just have to agree to the one-year deal of $1.2 million. That's it. And the Broncos pick up the rest. Just based on finances, to go out and get yourself an upgraded quarterback, it makes perfect sense for me. And it also tells me that the Steelers are basically done with Kenny Pickett, and they're acknowledging that that was a bad decision in the first round, and I think that's what's going on here. And now, hopefully, Wilson can bring stability to the quarterback spot for Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said, Chad. And the other thing, I mean, signing him for $1.2 million, I'm not familiar. I'm not a capologist. It has to leave them with enough money to, add a little more to that team. I think they're able to go out and get somebody if they need to. But they had a good team last year, other than their quarterback, if you ask me. They'll always guard you. They'll always defend, always. And that's the hallmark of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Steel curtain. They're still that way. If Russ can get them on the scoreboard 3 or 4 times a game, they're going to win a lot of games. And I think he's with the right coach who's going to probably keep his hands off. I think Arthur Smith will recognize what it is he does best and then sort of give ground on what he wants to do and let Russ cook, as they say. I think it's a good spot for Russ.
To be exact, they're going to be spending less than $4 million, or right at about $4 million on their quarterback position between Russ and Kenny Pickett.
Wow.
That's how it makes perfect sense. And that's the key. And that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
So that it makes sense to me. And I think for him getting, matched up with Arthur Smith, they'll run the football, they've got a defense, and he'll be in a position to do the things that he does. The most important part is that he'll just be asked to protect the football. And for him, you're looking at a situation where you have last 2 years, the Steelers have had a total of 25 touchdown passes from their quarterbacks. Last year, Russ had 26 with Denver. So it's an upgrade. And in a division where you've got Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson, you need to have better play from your quarterback or you have no chance. None.
Are they a playoff team, Chad?
Well, they were last year with a bad quarterback. They won 9 games. Yeah, they don't have losing seasons with their head coach, so they'll be right in the mix once again for a wild card spot. The problem is they're not going to win the division. That's going to go to Baltimore or Cincy, but they'll be right there in a position for one of the wild card spots because they play defense and run the football. And if they can get a few plays from their quarterback and Russ doesn't turn it over like we saw last year, then, they'll be right in a position to do it again.
Smart move.
All right. Kirk Cousins, big money to go to Atlanta. How do you like that fit?
Well, I think he should fit well. given, his recovery from the Achilles. And, yeah, they have a pretty good offensive line. They have good young playmakers on their team. I just think it should work. And especially with the consistency that Cousins will bring, I think they're going to be right in a battle with Tampa to win that division. And I don't think that's a real tough task. If Cousins goes down there, he's healthy, he can play, they'll win that division. I think they're probably better than Tampa, aren't they?
I don't know about that. Tampa's got more experience. I mean, it'll be a two-team battle in that division. It's going to be fun to watch. But you're right. A good offensive line. I just like the fact that they bring in a guy with experience who's going to be the adult in the room, and so he can work with all the young playmakers to make sure that they're in the right position, they understand what's going on, and that they can make the offense go.
A lot of experience there. Very well liked. He'll win his teammates over in a week. It should be good. And that lousy division, they should win a lot of games.
All right, now another team, you like the move that the Raiders made today to get Christian Wilkins and give him $84 million in guarantees. He comes over from the Dolphins. He'll line up on that defensive line. You like that move?
Yeah, it's a monster contract. There's no question about it. That's a lot of money to give to a D tackle. But, yeah, with him and Max Crosby, they're going to make life miserable for some of those quarterbacks in that division. And I think, yeah, I like the move. And the problem is they're not going to score a lot of points. So I guess you need a pretty aggressive defense to kind of win with that limited offense.
Getting Gardner Minshew on a very discounted type price, like he is a competent quarterback. He'll come in and run the offense and make a few plays for you. So I kind of see what they're doing there. They're like, okay, we don't have the big time quarterback yet, but let's beef up on defense and put ourselves in a position where we can slow down Justin Herbert or Patrick Mahomes and give ourselves a chance. I don't know how that's going to work, but I can kind of see that thinking, right? It's like, okay, we got to counter against those quarterbacks. Let's get the defense that we need to make that happen.
Yeah, and I think they will make quarterbacks uncomfortable. The question is how uncomfortable, because it's probably not going to take too many points to beat the Raiders. They're not going to score big. I like Gardner Minshew, always have. I think he's a tough guy. He's a pretty good leader. He's not incompetent. I think he's basically a backup quarterback, but we'll see how this works out. He's kind of a renegade player playing for a renegade team. Maybe that somehow works for him.
And you give yourself a chance to continue to work with Aiden O'Connell to see what he can become. Mm-hmm. I just don't know what you do in a division like that where you've got Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes because the Chiefs are going to continue to own that division, and if they don't, the Chargers will. So I guess what you do is you just continue to buy time until you can go out there and draft and develop and find your franchise guy. Because until you have your quarterback, it's not just that division, but then look around the AFC, it's loaded up. And if you don't have your guy, you're screwed. I honestly don't know how you approach it. You just got to find your quarterback.
Yeah.
What a mess.
I know. It's brutal.
I'm still thrown off by that call. The next time someone suggests that DeAndre Ayton be the power forward of the Trailblazers, I may just shut it down. I'm going to go find my sheep and start, become a monk and move to Montana. That's what I need to do, Godfather.
Yeah, I'll send you postcards. Hey, speaking, where's Justin Fields going to end up, Chad? I can't figure this whole thing out with what we've seen today in free agency. What's going to happen with him?
Well, what I'm hearing on him is that, one, obviously there's no trade market for him because the Bears have been working on this for weeks and nothing has materialized. So I think you're going to find a situation where he could wind up on the Eagles or Colts as a backup, and the Bears won't get too much compensation in return. But I think it's highly in doubt whether or not he's going to be a starter next year. So I would look at the Colts and the Eagles. They've got the right coach and the right type of offense where it'd be a good fit for him and a chance for him to kind of reestablish himself. But I would say that there's big question whether or not he's going to wind up in a place where he can start. So look at the Colts and Eagles as potential spots where he could land and be a backup.
Well, what about if they just held on to him? What if they just kept him? He's not making a lot this year. What if they keep him and say, hey, well, yeah, we're obviously going to draft Caleb Williams, but we'll keep him as a backup in case there's an injury problem or in case whatever. and maybe somebody during the season gets hurt, and then they need a quarterback, we can ship him off as a starting quarterback.
Well, I wouldn't do that because of Caleb Williams. If you're going to draft Caleb and make him the future of the franchise, then you don't want that Justin Fields cloud hanging over the franchise because that would be a distraction. It would be a distraction. Justin wouldn't want to be there in that spot, and I don't think Caleb would want to be there in that spot. So I just don't know how you can do that if you're going to bring in Caleb number 1 overall, and he's your guy, and then you've got the quarterback that you're essentially kicking to the curb there in the locker room. How would that work?
Well, yeah, I think you're also looking at a player who he needs to keep – well, I don't think he wants to be a problem player. I don't think Fields wants to be a problem for them, given that it would be a season where, he would still remain marketable to a team. Half the quarterbacks in the league are going to go down during the season. He's going to be a guy that people would want, and I think he'd know that.
So you hold on to him, even though you're going to draft Caleb Williams and make him the franchise, and you hold on to him. So when an injury happens, then you can move him out and get a better price for him.
Well, you're certainly, if you're trading him somewhere to make him a backup quarterback, you're going to get virtually nothing for him. So I think, you don't have that much.
I don't think they're going to get anything for him. I mean, they're not going to get anything for him anyways in terms of what they thought they would going in. They were probably thinking like a second-round pick or something. But I think the problem is the more people dive into the tape and take a look at the way he plays, I don't think they see a quarterback that they can invest in big time. Because the other issue is, here's the other big problem when you bring in Fields. If you bring him in, it's not just the draft capital you have to give up to get him, but he's also coming up on a contract extension.
Yeah.
And so how are you going to deal with that? So you're acquiring a player that is going to be up for extension that you may not extend, especially for the type of money he may want. So why would you give up draft capital to bring in a guy that may not be a part of your future, and he's sitting there in a position to get extended out? That's a problem.
Well, I don't think you'd give up as much draft capital in the middle of a season in that situation, but I do think it would give you half a season to see how he plays for you before you would extend him. It would be sort of a tryout for him.
Well, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but I mean, you've been around sports longer than I have. How often do you see a team keep a player on the roster when they're drafting the franchise? Like most of the time, they move on from that, right? So it doesn't happen hardly ever at all. So I just can't imagine they would keep Fields on the roster because I've never seen it happen before. I mean, you draft Caleb Williams, he's your guy. He doesn't want Justin Fields there. You want him to be comfortable in that quarterback room. If you got a guy that's been kicked to the curb, I don't think that's good for the quarterback room. I think it'd be better to move on from Fields and have a veteran in there who's not going to be upset that he's not playing quarterback anymore, that can help Caleb through his development process. That's what I think.
Yeah, maybe so. But Caleb Williams is a rookie, and he's not in position to do too much complaining right off the top. He knows he's going to play. So we'll see.
Well, no, I'm not saying he's going to complain, but I'm saying that Godfather, do you understand what you're saying? You're saying keep Fields, who is being kicked to the curb, who was drafted as the supposed franchise quarterback, and now they don't want him anymore, so you're going to keep him in the quarterback room just so you can hopefully get better draft compensation when you got Caleb Williams there? I just can't see how that works.
Well, I think it works because you don't want to just give him away. You took him first, for crying out loud. You don't want to just give the guy away for a 6th-round pick or something.
I know, but the value's not there. That's the problem. He's not worth much to other teams in the league.
Well,
they've been trying to negotiate a trade for weeks.
Look at how desperate teams were last season when they lost their starting quarterbacks.
If Justin Fields were a quality quarterback, teams would have already executed a trade to bring him in and have him be the starter. But it hasn't happened. They've been shopping him for weeks now, and nothing's come together. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think their asking price was obviously too high. That doesn't mean there wouldn't be something a little better.
Yeah, I just don't. I mean, like I said, from what I'm hearing, heck, what Benjamin Albright's reporting is that, the value around the league is not there, and he's more than likely going to wind up backing up and be a backup next year. So, I mean, sure, I'm sure the Bears would like to get a 2nd-round pick, but that's, that I think that ship has sailed. So we'll see how things shake out. We'll come back and we'll take a look at that first round because the first round of the draft is going to be altered a bit. and we'll get into that. And then at game day, we'll kick off at 5. We're going to focus in on DeAndre Ayton, not about him playing power forward, but we're going to focus in on his play and something that Godfather brought up, how to keep that engagement as they enter into a brand new year next year. You got the Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad. Boy, Godfather, speaking of quarterbacks that have been tossed aside, how about the Patriots sending Mac Jones to the Jaguars for his 6th-round pick?
That's just amazing. You talk about a guy being devalued. That's the poster child for that. They got nothing. I mean, that's giving a guy away for pocket change almost. And they're definitely ready to move on. That's for sure.
You know what that tells me. You know, the coach who took over for Belichick, Gerard Mayo, was on staff and obviously was there for the entire time that Mac Jones was there. He saw it firsthand, and that tells me right there. He's like, I don't want that guy on my team. Let's get him out of here.
Yeah.
And they just shipped him out for a 6th-round pick. But for the Jags, it actually makes sense because you get a viable backup behind Trevor Lawrence in case he tricks a knee or an ankle or whatever, and you've got someone that can step in and run your offense, and you didn't have to give up much to get him. So from the Jags standpoint, it makes sense.
Well, and not only that, Chad, but you got a coach there who's pretty good with quarterbacks, and you always wonder if you can rehab a guy like that. You know, there have been other quarterbacks that didn't really light anybody's fire as a rookie, but they go to a different place with maybe a little bit better situation, scheme, coaching, whatever, and they turn out okay. So I'll be interested to see what happens with him. Just, you know, I think he's in a better spot here.
All right, here's the latest report from Benjamin Albright from KOA on Justin Fields. He says, wouldn't be surprised if Justin Fields winds up being a backup this year. Several teams that were being reported were never in play, and the market has been incredibly thin on him as the Bears have shopped him now for several weeks. So my guess is there you go out, you try to put together offers, and then all of a sudden you realize real quick that the teams you're speaking with don't view your player the same way that you view your player, or at least what you hope your player might be able to net you in the open market. That's got to be kind of an eye-opening experience, I would guess.
Man, he goes from being, starter. Will they bring him back or not? Will they, I mean, there was a question for a while whether or not they would draft a quarterback or just keep him. And now he's going somewhere to be a backup. Man, that's a pretty steep fall there.
Yeah, and my guess is, most of who was that I heard today? John Middlecoff said that, that even, regardless of the rumors that were out there with Justin Fields, he talked to a few people at the Combine. They pretty much knew about midway through the season they were going to draft a quarterback. So the Bears themselves were confident in what they were going to do with that number 1 pick before the season, far from before the season came to an end.
Yeah.
So we'll see how things continue to shake out. But that's going to be intriguing to watch now because in the draft, Godfather, because you've got those teams at the top in Chicago and Washington and New England who we expect to take quarterbacks. But now with what's happened today, Kirk Cousins is on his way to Atlanta. So that means Minnesota needs a quarterback. You also have Atlanta sitting there at number 8 in the draft order. They don't need a quarterback anymore, so they'll be out of the mix. And so now the teams that are looking at drafting a potential quarterback in the draft now can look at that 8 spot, and Atlanta could be very willing to move out of that spot if they get the right compensation in place. And if you want to move up and get, whether it's J.J. McCarthy or somebody else, if you truly believe in them, then it looks like number 8 would be the spot to do it. That's going to be fun to watch. And I want to see which of these college quarterbacks is it J.J. McCarthy? Is it Bo Nix? Is there somebody else after the top 3 that teams are salivating over to hopefully get a chance to grab?
Yeah, it appears McCarthy's the guy everybody seems to like. The question is how much they like him. That translates into how high he's picked. And I've heard several people say there might be 4 guys go in the top 10. And, man, that. I don't know. McCarthy's a bit of a reach for me in the top 10.
Well, who else? Do you consider Caleb, Jaden Daniels, and Drake May top 10 quarterbacks?
Yeah.
But
that 4th one is the question.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think I wouldn't draft any of the remaining quarterbacks after those 3 in the top 10.
Yeah.
I wouldn't. And I don't think you would. The question is there a team out there desperate enough for a quarterback? Because the other thing, too, is like when you look at these 2 guys, Mac Jones being one, and then who was the other guy that Kenny Pickett? Like, okay, so the Steelers and the Patriots reached on those 2 guys. When you look at some of these draft prospects, it's like Mac Jones, even at his ceiling, if he were to play his best football, like what exactly does that look like, right? And does that, represent a top 10 pick? And so that's where I get concerned about some of these other quarterbacks is like, okay, at their best, do they have superstar potential? What can they be exactly? Is it worth that type of pick? And it goes back to everything we talked about. It's an inexact science, and it's a risky business, very risky business. Like I was just looking at this, I think it was 10 guys between the Broncos 2019 and 2020 drafts. I think I counted up like 9 guys in those 2 drafts that are no longer on the team. Like that is devastating when you draft players and they don't work out and they're not even starting for your team. It can set you back for years.
Yeah, and then I think there's an interesting scenario too, Chad. You're drafting quarterbacks. Most of the time, you're not going to get Mahomes in the draft. You're not going to get Joe Burrow in the draft, And those guys are not exactly available to you every year or maybe even every other year. So at what point do you say, yeah, this guy's not as good as Mahomes, but we can win with him? And where does that line get drawn? I don't know how good a guy has to be. What percent of Patrick Mahomes does he have to be to go in the top 10, top 15, top 20? Those are, I think, for personnel guys, those are really tough calls because they know they're not getting a, generational quarterback, but are they getting a guy who could get them to a Super Bowl? Well, not every team has those guys, so you have to settle for a little less than that. I don't know what that guy looks like,
If you end up drafting the next Kirk Cousins in the first round, is that okay?
Well, yeah, it's better than having Geno Smith. I don't know what to tell you about that. That's I think the question these guys wrestle with is, he isn't a very top. He's not in the top 3 in the league or top 5 in the league. But how long do we have to wait to get that guy? We may never get that guy. So we're going to have to get somebody who's pretty good. Somebody who's better than what we have now.
Yeah, you don't have to have a Patrick Mahomes, a Joe Burrow, or a Josh Allen. You don't have to have that elite quarterback. If you take someone in that next tier down, like a Cousins or a Jalen Hurts or one of those types, you can win with them, and you can even get to a Super Bowl. You just have to build and construct your team properly to make that work. It's just a little bit harder because you have to have a few other things on your team right to be able to get it done. And I think that's where the challenge comes in because you're right. It's tough to find one of those big-time quarterbacks. Oh, by the way, how about the Chiefs getting Chris Jones back on a fat deal? Man. Good for him and good for the Chiefs.
Yep. Perfect guy for that. They had to bring him back. So good in the locker room. Such a leader for them. Their defense can be good again.
And most importantly, he's at his best in the big games, the big moments.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we're on the same page then. We see 3 guys being top 10 quarterbacks, but the rest, it's a crapshoot. It's a crapshoot. I don't know. But if you could trade back and get Bo Nix, I wouldn't mind seeing him work with Sean Payton and get a chance to develop. The other guy to keep an eye on is Sam Darnold. He's like the next best available free agent quarterback right now. Vikings could have interest, as do the Denver Broncos, so we'll keep an eye on him. All right, Blazers Game Day is coming up next. Dwight's going to stay for the opening segment, and we'll focus in on DeAndre Ayton. Tip-off with the Blazers and Celtics coming up at 7:30 here on 620 Rip City Radio.